Hello, hola, buenas, ¿qué hubo, qué más, qué pasó, parceros?
¿Cómo vas, Claire? Te veo inspirada.
It's the Chancleta Generation Podcast. Buenas, ¿cómo estás, Ceci?
Cariño, gusto de verte igual.
Hey everyone, I am Clemencia and I own Moira Studio, an advertising agency that speaks to Latinos in the US.
And I'm Cecilia del Cid, environmental and social justice practitioner, Latin American immigrant from Guatemala, community leader, here for the conversation with my parcera, Cubo.
Y tenemos a la parcera. And today we're super honored to welcome Maria Elisa from the Elizabeth Freeman Center. Very, very welcome. Bienvenida.
Thank you.
Querida.
Gracias por el espacio.
Amiga.
Thank you for the space. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you. Tan emocionada del espacio. Gracias.
Yes.
So, Maria Elisa, citizen of the world and born in Cuenca, Ecuador. I've never been to Ecuador. Could you believe that?
Oh,
I need to fix
terrible.
that.
Yeah,
we
I need to
please
fix that.
do fix that.
Chilena de corazón and proud U.S. citizen and survivor of domestic violence. Maria Elisa has worked for more than 10 years on behalf of immigrant rights in the United States. She worked for the Immigrant Center in Berkshire County, where she served as a Board of Immigration Appeals accredited representative. Maria Elisa also served on the Human Rights Commission of the City of Pittsfield, and for the past several years has worked at the Elizabeth Freeman Center, dedicated to counseling survivors of domestic and or sexual violence. She currently serves as the coordinator of the Immigrant Justice and Safety Program at the same institution. Amazing work.
Thank you.
And probably, amazing, and also probably just very emotionally draining sometimes, right?
Yes, it could be very hard. First of all, I just wanted to thank you both for having me here today. I appreciate every space and platform that I'm provided, and I'm given the opportunity to speak of what my truth is, what I do, what I love to do, and what moves me to do the work that I do. So going back to your question, Clemencia, yes, it's very important work. It's very hard work, but at the center where I work right now, the Elizabeth Freeman Center, the team is amazing, and we are able to build in community within the agency to support each other, because the work itself is really hard. But if you have that environment that pushes you to move forward and just continues to support the days that you're feeling very low and that your soul gets touched in that very specific way that can trigger some past trauma. So I'm very fortunate to work where I work. I love the work that I do, and it's very amazing for me to be able to share with my clients some experience that I have had and things that have worked for me, things that haven't worked, and just connect them with this services and resources that they need. Being a survivor had really hard for my life, but also opened many other doors, and right now I'm able to be in the other side, just trying to pass on a little bit of the information and the support that I received when I needed it. So I love my work. Ceci knows we worked together before. That's how we met, and we became very good friends. So it's an amazing space to work. And again, the work is really hard, but the support is amazing, so we continue to move forward. So thank you.
Yeah. I mean, from personal experience, it's just so beautiful and rewarding to turn past life traumas into your life purpose, and kind of, getting to help other people that are maybe going through that, or like trying to change things so people don't go through that. Is just, to me, it's always been rewarding. So it's so nice to see other people that are also working on the same thing.
Yes, and the thing with me has been that it's very easy sometimes to relate in certain circumstances, but it's very hard sometimes to kind of draw those lines, because I know my truth, and as much as I want to help others, my story, as similar as I can be for others, is unique. So that's when we take extra steps, and that's what the work that we do is so important, to connecting with others and building community and building those relationships with others, to be able to refer people to the appropriate resources, because many people, we have been in the country for many years, and it's just very easy to make an assumption, to jump to a conclusion, and it might not be the right answer for that person. So that's why connecting with people it's amazing. And again, like, we were in a ceremony a few days back, and I run into so many people that I haven't seen in years, that we started like in the community, working in social justice, different spaces, and very, very good friends of mine, like so close to my heart. So it makes it so much better when you have that support, and you meet so many amazing people in the way. So definitely very rewarding to work in the Berkshires. It's such a beautiful community that open space for so many of us. So yes,
that's awesome.
Yes, I really love it.
So, I mean, we have brought an expert to talk about the topic for today, because we're here to talk about having healthy relationships. Yes. And we've been talking about, throughout many episodes, we've talked about many generational and cultural challenges that us Latinos face here in the United States. So this is a really important one, because we're going to try to talk about it in the positive way, not just talk about the ugly part of it, but just really talk about how we can move forward, or how we can make things better for us. And as we were preparing for this episode, we talked about how sometimes the smaller, more intimate relationships really reflect on the more macro relationships. How is it that we can also relate to our government, our leaders, the country that we live in, the law, and just so many things that are just in a macro level, and also like as a community, how one state relates to the other, one cultural community relates to the other. So it's just like, it really mirrors it. So sort of like starting, it's so cliche, like starting at home, but also starting at home or in your closest relationships is really when you start healing the rest of your relationships on a bigger scale.
Absolutely right. And I'm so sorry, just using somebody else's
and
space.
I was gonna say, you're talking about home, Clem, and I was gonna say I'm so excited to have Elisa here. Elisa was the person who trained me when I did some similar work at the Elizabeth Freeman Center, also as an advocate. I loved the work. I learned so much in the work, but it wasn't my path. But I will never change the time that I spent in that community and the things that I learned, because that's what I had to confront my anti-Blackness. That's what I had to confront my anti-poverty biases. Mm-hmm. That's where I had to confront a lot of my own colonized ideas, and I had to begin my work of dismantling it. I give Elizabeth Freeman a lot of credit of when I began my journey on a kind of like justice path applied. And Elisa was a person who very gently and very wisely guided me through do. And that's what I thought that the conversation with Elisa needed to be about, healthy relationships, because I know she focuses on that, and also because I think it was a lot of healing, but the relationship I had with myself. And I think a lot of, and just reflecting a little bit on what you're saying, your story is unique. That's the work, right? Making people remember that the first relationship we need to heal is with ourselves, and then we move from there to like the intimate ones, like family and partners, and then into the exterior ones, or more forward facing, like work and community engagement. But I think that is the core that I wanted, that I was thinking at least I could help us reflect on.
Thank you, Ceci. Thank you, Clemencia. And just piggybacking on what Clemencia said, calling me an expert, not even close. I appreciate that, but not even close. And I can talk to you in a very humble space in my heart that the work that I do comes from my own experiences done. I wish I can further my education in the US. That's something that I definitely want to do. Sometimes I'm in the space and I have so much to say, but it comes with that own journeys, right? Feeling that maybe my voice should be a little bit lower instead of being that big. There's just so many sentiments that come in between. So that self-care, that self-love that Ceci is referring to is so important, because that's how we start to irradiate to others. And it's such a cliche to say, well, we start with us, but guess what? That is the truth. There's no other way around it. And it could be very easy for people, for us in general as humans, to point out other people's flaws or other people's reactions or biases. But then when it comes to the space for self-reflection, that's when we kind of prevent and we stop. And that's how we can start, again, going back to what Ceci said and mentioned, starting with us to be able to just move into the other kind of relationships. So how do we bring ourselves to that space, right? Of starting with me. And let me tell you a big one that I have, and this is something that I always share with my daughters, and I said is compassion to yourself. That is the big one. That to me is a big one. I always tell the kids, my babies, not babies anymore, I said, I wish you can see yourself through my eyes. I wish you can see what I see, because that's the thing. Like, when it comes to me talking to my children, there's no way I'm going to say something that will hurt them, because they're my babies and I love them to death. But when it comes to me, then I do second guess myself. Should I be saying this? Should I not? I'm trying to make myself smaller and smaller and smaller. So if we can radiate the same compassion that we radiate to people that we love towards ourselves, that's when we start with the self-care and the healing that relationship with our own persona. So I think that is one big one. And the compassion was with the not judgmental. Like, I am a human and I have every right to make a mistake, and I have every right to reinvent myself every single day if I want to, if I need to. No judgment, no pointing fingers on myself, just knowing that I making the decisions that I'm making. As Ceci said the other day, so true what you mentioned, Ceci, decisions that are made out of freedom, not fear. I do this because I want this for myself. It's very hard for us that come with from countries that were colonized. We have that tendency to kind of always putting our heads down and like, okay, very submissive, believing that we have no right to say anything, especially being women. I come from a very patriarch community and city and country, and things were done in a way that you were not able to do certain things. But here we are in this new space, new country, trying to build ourselves in the best way that we can. So compassion to ourselves, zero judgment. I'm okay. I will reinvent myself 30 times a day if I need to, whatever it needs to make me and put me in that space, looking up and looking with those eyes that I look to the people that I love, the same compassion and love. So I believe that is one of the key elements. And again, I'm telling you, all the things that I'm sharing comes from the work that I've been trying to do with myself. Not easy, right? Easy to preach, hard to do, but it is the truth. Like, we need to start like that, and then we start moving into finding those spaces and what makes sense, and knowing what we deserve as humans, and not taking anything less than what we deserve, and not trying to bring that space in our lives and our minds and our souls, knowing that there's no guilt with it. Putting myself first has nothing to do with being selfish, has nothing to do with egocentrism, has nothing to do with what I want for me. And that's just it. And there's a very cliche analogy that I'm going to use. You know, when you're in the plane and they give you instructions, like if there's ¿cómo se dice? Pérdida de presión en la cabina, like low pressure in the cabin, you'll see the mask come down. What is the first thing that they tell you? You put your mask
on. Put it on to yourself,
before you do that. And that's it's been said so many times, repeated and repeated, and that kind of loses its value, but it's the ultimate truth. There's nothing como una cesta vacía, like an empty base. Like, if there's nothing else, how are you going to continue to give others if you don't do it to yourself? But compassion, guys, that's the word for me today for ourselves. compassion.
I mean, I feel like the Latino culture is so sacrificial, and I think it's born out of religion,
Yes.
Catholic religion. Like you just,
Yeah.
flagellate yourself, and it's very,
Self-sacrificing.
I'm gonna sacrifice myself for my family, sacrifice myself for my parents, my children, all kinds of things. So it's a very entrenched feeling of, putting yourself first is actually seen as selfish and wrong.
Exactly.
And you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to put other people in front of you. So it's like, if other people are putting other people in front, and like who's actually in front? You know what I mean? So like, what's the order of things here?
Yeah.
And so it's a very entrenched thing, and you had said something really interesting, which was the clash of the Latino culture coming here, and then it's a completely different way of thinking, of also seeing yourself. It's actually not as sacrificial. It's also it's very it's good. It's putting yourself first,
Yeah.
but then you have children in this country, and then it's just. It just feels like some of these children and parents are worlds away from each other.
Yes.
And then as the children, I mean, I know from personal experience, I'm trying to negotiate, what parts of my culture do I borrow that, speak to me the best, or like feel the best to me, or and then what parts of the other culture I can borrow that actually help me along. So it's kind of like this negotiation, and this country is also very much about competition and achievements, and so then your sacrificial culture is clashing with this, which means that your negative self-talk is incredible.
Yes.
And so you're always just like, putting yourself down, like, no, I didn't do enough. I'm not enough for this. Because it's also like, so it's the negative self-talk is something that is prevalent and insidious, and it causes people to hurt others, and also causes people to hurt themselves a lot. So it's you're right on the money. The Dalai Lama is saying it, but it's like it's right on the money.
Yes, it is right there. And the thing is that I think the approach that we take, we need to bring this conversation and bring in a different lens, if we can say it, so we can engage new generations, or even older generations, people that have immigrated to this country under 50s or 60s, because it's so hard to break those patterns. It's so hard to break those values that are just so part of who you are, right? So what I wanted to tell you is that there's just so many beautiful things about our Latin culture. So amazing. And the idea is to be able to bring those values in and use them in a way that makes us bigger, that makes us grow, not that puts us down, not that brings us in a space of feeling that we're not good enough, or that we're not doing enough, or feeling guilty we're not being productive enough. Because having a full-time job is not enough. You're lazy if you don't have at least another part-time, those kind of feelings. So we are people that have this smile. Look at Ceci's smile. My God.
No, but I was gonna say, like, that's like the anti-oppression lens. I think that's like a couple of things that you mentioned. Like you mentioned compassion, and I said compassion needs to be tied up with empathy, not sympathy. And I think that when we talk about that sacrifice, like, I don't mind sacrifice. Like, when we think about, I would say, organized religion, we talk about Catholicism in Latin America, but I don't think it's only Catholicism. It's every organized religion has like a method of control and allows you to feel like someone has that power. So when that relationship with us, I think if we have compassion and empathy instead of sympathy, I don't mind sacrificing certain things with the knowledge that if it's out of freedom and not out of fear, and with the knowledge that what I am sacrificing for is probably of value to me. That's what it feels like, a sacrifice. But I'm going to gain something of more value. For example, I'm a nerd, right? Like, I love going to school, and many times I sacrifice, my time of not working or not earning while I was in school, with the knowledge that what I was going to gain after putting that time towards the school, in that relationship with me, and what enriched me. made me better. So that sacrifice, if it comes out of freedom, can feel like liberating and empowering. So with the empathy.
Yeah, I mean, letting go of things that don't serve you anymore is a kind of sacrifice, but
yeah, because if you are entrenched in codependence,
it's hard to tell one from the other, right?
Yeah. But I think what is important, what guides you, is that one generates fear and the other one generates freedom. And that feeling is very clear. When you do something that, even though it's hard, you can rest at night with peace of mind. Even though you did something that might have consequences that are dear to you, a loss of a job, a loss of a partner, a loss of something dear, important to you. If you can rest, if you have peace of mind, peace of heart, that comes out of freedom. When you know how fear feels. We all know how fear feels.
Yeah.
We've been trained. It's the system. Like when you say, Elisa, like when we just having a job is not enough, or that desire of perfectionism. Those are all traits of capitalism that are being created so that you have to be extracted. Your energy, your peace gets extracted of you, because if you don't give all that, you can't survive.
Enough. And you're not good enough.
Yeah, you're not good enough.
Exactly. So I thank you, Ceci, for mentioning that, the empathy versus sympathy. It is so true. And the thing with what we see with people and immigrants and people that I've been working with is that space, like how hard it is for us. And let me talk to you about, I don't want to talk for anybody else but myself, being a woman and being an immigrant. And raised in a country, like I was forced to go to church every Sunday. I was forced to do certain things. That was because that was just it by default. There was no questions asked. And then coming to this country in my early 20s and realizing that things are a little bit different here. But I want to be able to bring what made me happy about my culture and maintain those values that make me happy and make me feel that sense of belonging. I don't want to leave those, but I want to do it again from that space of freedom and not the fear. So there's just so many amazing things from the Latina, Latinx culture that we can build into creating those healthy relationships, starting with ourselves. And then when we talk about relationship with colleagues, or talking relationship with people that we left behind in our countries, or family members that are here with us, or new people that come into our lives, like what are those values that we can actually bring to make those relationships better without losing that sense of that who I am. I don't want to lose the sense that I call myself Chilena de corazón, because Chile is like a country that I absolutely adore. And when my family comes and they're speaking to me, like within hours, I'm more Chilena than they are. Like, ¿cachai? La cuestión. So I don't want to leave none of that. I want to be who I am, but I want to do it from a space that makes sense to me. That I can look at myself in the mirror and say, this is the best version of me, who I am supposed to be. Because I want to, because it makes me feel right, and because it is why I deserve nothing less than that. Yeah. So is there any...
So let's talk about the components of these healthy relationships. We said compassion and empathy. What else do we have?
Give me one. I want to see what you think. What do you guys think would be a good one?
I said freedom.
Yes.
Equity.
We're talking about an intimate relationship, right? Romantic relationship.
Intimate, or like even in friendships, or even at work. I want to feel like, even if, let's say, I have a boss and they might have authority or superiority, that doesn't make them, they don't give them that they don't have the authority to like yell at me or disrespect me, like that I'm equally human as them, and I deserve the same level of respect to them, and I have this much intrinsic value to my persona as they do. So when I think of respect, that equity,
so that's
so like
respect, clear boundaries, knowing exactly what you can expect from others. This is something that my mom used to tell me. No puedes sacarle una manzana a un árbol de pera. Like, you cannot get an apple from a pear tree. Come on. Like, you know what you can expect from some people. And that's the hard thing, because we are built to have expectations. I'm expected to behave this way because I'm a girl that was raised in this way. I'm expected to show up in this space like this or like that. So expectations. What do we expect? I'm a mom of 3 girls, 2 by my own kids and 1 that is my husband's. And I was just talking to my child last night, and I said, I expect you to be happy. That's the only I have no expectation what you want to achieve or nothing. I want you to be happy, but that's my thing. If you want to be happy and choose to do that, who am I to say what? And it's so hard because it's so easy to say, but it's so hard to actually.
It's so hard because you're saying, you know, when you're turning 30, you're like, oh, I expect it to be here when I'm turning 30. Oh, I expect it to be here when I'm turning 40. Oh, I expect it to be here when I'm turning 50. And it goes on and on. Or I expected by this time I will be married. By this time I will have children. By this time, and like, but it's like it's also entrenched in the American culture.
Yes.
It's very like, you know, I should have been here.
Like,
or
you're supposed to be out or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of the diversity that we immigrants bring to this country. That's the beauty of it. Being able to pull from each other's values and cultures and see what makes sense for us. Because we can rebuild who we are. We can recreate who we are. We can reinvent who we are every day. So what I think that it's one of the things that is important is respect. The ability to be able to share power, like Ceci was saying. Like what let's talk about in a professional relationship. Let's take about a boss. My boss is going to have power over decisions that I don't have, and that's totally fine because that's a hierarchy and whatever, right? But that doesn't mean that the person, again, has the authority to disvalue me as a human being, right? So where is the line of power? Like making decisions and treating me, there has to be the line. There has to be the expectation, the boundary, the limits that tell me when it's me or you being my boss or me being your boss or your supervisor and leading you or helping you or facilitating your growth or facilitating the work that you're doing versus pointing a finger and saying you're not doing this, that's when it becomes a conflict. And then we will talk about conflict resolution in a minute. But again, it's setting boundaries and expectations, and that's again going back to what do I see myself as. Because it's very hard for me, for many years, it was very hard for me to say no. Whoever will ask me what I will say yes. And Ceci knows, yes. And they end up with so many projects in my head that was like, 24 hours a day is not even enough for what I need. But I building myself to that, say, okay, it's okay for me to say no. No guilt. No is no, because I don't feel like it, or I want to, or simply, I'm not interested. So again, going back to the space, feeling compassion for ourselves, knowing that it's okay to set those limits. And I think that goes for every kind of relationship, every single one.
Yeah. Definitely building boundaries has a lot to do with knowing yourself and knowing what your limitations are and, you know, where people can come, you know, like what's your distance, you know, that you need to have in anything.
Yes.
In the way they speak to you and the way they treat you and you know, there's people that, you know, have different, like there's no right or wrong. Some people have bigger boundaries, some people have smaller, and whatever makes them feel comfortable, that's fine.
Yeah.
But it does come with a lot of, you know, self-knowledge and what is it that, you know about yourself and what makes you comfortable, because, you know, there's so many of us that you know, our boundaries get crossed, and that just causes pain, and then we don't know what to do with them, and it gets worse every time. So it's like a lot of the stress and pain that we suffer is from not having enough boundaries and letting other people transgress. And
that is the thing, because setting boundaries is very important. But if you do not follow through, like because I can say, you know, this is not going to happen to me, like this is my whatever situation is. But then if that happens, and I need to work on myself to be able to know that it can be assertive and say, you know what, this is what we agreed on, and doesn't have to be ¿cómo se dice? It's not a conflict. What is the word I'm looking for? Okay, this doesn't have to be a big discussion, doesn't have to be an argument per se, it doesn't have to be a heated argument, just saying, you know what, this is how far I can get, like I make clear that this was what I was expecting, and this is what you can expect from me. But if we just set the boundaries and no conversation continues, and if somebody steps over those boundaries and you're still like in silence, it doesn't work. It has to be accompanied from you asserting your rights, right? Saying, okay, this is what I can do. I want this for me. And this is something that I have done with myself, and it has helped. I let people cross so many boundaries in my life, so many, that I said one day I snapped and said, no more, I'm done. And then I realized it's like when I want to start a diet, say, okay, no more carbs, no more sugars, no blah, 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 blah. I'm like, I need to start with one. Let's prioritize the one that is draining my energy the most. And then I start with that one, or maybe the other way, like the little one. And then I just build myself up. But it's very overwhelming when you want to do everything at once, because first, it's not sustainable, especially if you're dealing some kind of if you have to set boundaries very clear like that could probably bring a lot of anxiety if you're not used to doing that. And we know that mental health is not an easy topic for our culture, for us Latinos. It's such a taboo still. So again, going back to that same thing, compassion. I have the right to do this, and I'm going to do it, but it's not easy. So I do suggest, for personal experience, when we're trying to set those boundaries, if you feel that you cannot manage everything that you want to do, let's start by one and pat yourself in the back saying, okay, I did this for me. And it's not, no judgment. There's many other things that need to be taken care of, but maybe I'm not able to do them all today or right now, but I'm going to start with one that makes sense. And that one is going to build to the next one, and that, and so on and so on. So again, it's our own journeys. We all know our own experiences. So yeah, that's the beauty of the work that I do, that I hear and I talk to so many people, and we are the bridges to build those relationships for them with the resources. But you have no idea how much I learn from the people that I encounter every day. It's amazing the amount of wisdom that there is out there, and we just need to be open to receive that information and to take it as it is, and not take it personal if there's some things that we don't like or we dislike. And again, that's very hard for some folks, but again, we are humans and we are beautiful, and there's so much in us that needs to be shared with others, and which is why I applaud the efforts of having spaces like the one that you guys have created to be able to speak and talk about it. So thank you again for having me here. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, these are kinds of topics that, like you said, they're taboo for our culture, but they need to be spoken of more. Absolutely. And especially from the cultural lens that we have. So bueno, mis chancleteros, thank you for listening to part 1 of this episode. I hope you're enjoying the topic. We sure are. And we're coming back next week with part 2, where we'll talk about a little bit more about how to have healthy relationships, because we all need to hear some of this stuff. I know I do.
Good plan.
See you next week.
See you next week.